Okay, so let's officially begin our character. Now in this lesson, we're going to start off by blocking out our base meshes for all our articles of clothing, beginning with our jacket. It's a good opportunity now to learn some of the two remeshing features within ZBrush, which are Dynamesh and ZRemesher, grasping their differences and their strengths and weaknesses, along with Isolate Select and polygroups and how we can use that to manipulate the shape and form of our base meshes. So with that said, let's get started. Before I go further, I will remind everyone again, we are working with a slightly earlier version of ZBrush. That way, not to let anyone out of any features that might be privy exclusive to 2023. Because some people are operating on earlier versions of ZBrush versus later versions. So we wanted to find a happy medium in which everyone can take advantage of all the features within ZBrush. So let's just go ahead and get started. Now let's go ahead and clear out our digital library shelf here by hitting the comma key or lightbox, which is up there. If you want to change the size, let's just go up to Document, make sure that W size is turned on, and hit New Document so we can get a full screen right there. And let's just sort of begin. Now, to give us a start off, what we're going to do is take advantage of some of the ZBrush's strengths of giving us a mannequin. A mannequin is going to help to give us a good idea of proportions and give us a good baseline start off on where we put all our article clothing base meshes for. So let's go ahead and do that right now. To access all ZBrush's built-in mannequins, we just simply go through and up to Lightbox again, where you can hit the comma key, and you can go ahead and scroll through and kind of see all the different things that are available here. But for now, let's just go ahead and look at the folder where it says mannequin. Double click on that, and if you'll see, you'll have a variety of different versions of a mannequin. You got a sort of cartoonish looking one, sort of smaller childlike one. So there's no such thing as a right or wrong one, but I'm just going to click on this one here. Now, once you have that, go ahead and clear out the floor space to help you out a little bit more. And let's go ahead and start posing this mannequin. That's kind of the reason we're using this. Now, you can do this for any kind of pose. We're going to make what's called a T-pose for this character because this character has the intention of going through a process of being rigged and eventually animated. So one thing we have to do is go through what's called a T-pose. So I'm going to show you what that is right here. Now to work the mannequin, I'm just going to go ahead and left click on this bone right in their tricep arm, and I can just simply drag and drop. Now if you click on the sphere itself, it won't move, and that's mainly because it's stuck on the rotating. So you're actually just rotating something and it's not really changing much. So to access and change that so that Z-spheres can move, you just go up to where it says move and hit that move button, or hit the W button. And this will allow movement. Hit Control Z or Command Z to undo anything. And if you want, let's just go ahead and simply go through just kind of posing this as you want. I'm kind of taking my time here through all of this. Feel free to hold spacebar and draw the draw size down if you want. And if you want to bring in or make any adjustments, you can. Don't forget, just like there's a W key, there's also an E key for scale, and you can scale out some of these. And you know, we're not going to turn this into any kind of a mesh or anything. We're just using this sort of to give us a little bit of little legway in getting our character started. So we're just going to kind of have a little fun with this. Go ahead and just kind of put him in here. Now remember, he's a little bit of a cartoon looking character. And I'm just kind of bringing them in like so. So once you have your character, let's go ahead and have a pose. And I like to give a little bit of a gap, not too terribly much. And if you want to hit the E key to make this smaller, you can, and then switch into W. You can do that. You can just simply kind of give yourself a little bit of a mannequin right there. Now, you can turn this into a mesh if you want. I will say that if it's your first time, I'd hold off on turning this into a mesh, mainly because of the fact that we are going to be doing this for beginners, and something that's very helpful to beginners when making their first character is sculpting the character out in pieces, like the jacket, the shirt, the hands, the head, all different pieces. As you get more advanced, you can go ahead and make it one seamless mesh, but it gets a little bit tricky and counterproductive in doing more work than what's actually needed. So let's just keep things simple right now. So now that we have a little bit of what we want, let's go ahead and start giving ourselves the opportunity to learn how to append 3D primitives into the subtool. To do that, we just click on the subtool, which gives us a list of all our meshes within this one project. We can have multiple projects, but for now it's just going to be a whole bunch of meshes like the jacket, the arms, the sleeves, the head. All of these will come down in list format for you to select in the subtool. So just go ahead and hit append. And we'll go with something like, I can start off with maybe something like sphere. And what I'll do with this sphere is I'll bring it in here, and it's kind of big and covering everything up, and it gives us an opportunity to kind of look at everything. Right now it's in perspective mode. I'd like to look at this with a little bit more of a flat look right now. So let's turn off perspective up here, or if you want, hit the P key and drag this into a smaller case. And now that I'm looking at this, I think I may go on ahead and I might just change the matte cap to a basic material white. So now that we have this, let's just go ahead and bring this guy in like so. And I'm going to make this fit around the sleeve like so. And then scale this guy down like so. And I'm looking at these shoulders. Let me go back in the mannequin. This is why I like working with the mannequin. I can kind of just work with making adjustments as on the fly. There we go. And to switch back into the cylinder, you can hit left alt or left option, left click to click on that. Of course, make sure you gotta hit Q. Whoops, I think I accidentally deleted that. Apologies. I'll hit Control Z to bring that in. There we go. Bring this in, and all I'm doing is just simply bringing in sort of like a mesh right here. And this is going to kind of work as a little bit like our sleeve. Now access some of your brushes. You know how to do this. BMV for a move brush. And we can kind of just bring this brush in like so. And I'm keeping this brush a little bit on a low poly format right now. And we don't need this to be anything. We don't need this to be a perfect shape at this moment. What we're doing is just simply kind of crafting away on certain kinds of just giving ourselves sort of like a base mesh to start off with is basically what we're doing here. And definitely hold spacebar and keep going through, finding just that right look. Now, if you feel that that guy is a little bit too long in arms, you can go ahead and just sort of bring it out and bring it in a little bit more. And if you feel this is too big, just make a big old space right there and just hold shift and kind of bring her down like that. And then go back into BMV and just kind of bring it out again. And again, if you wanted to expand, you can always do something like inflate. We're not really too concerned about topology at this point. We're just simply trying to put just enough of a having a sort of, what I would say is sculptable mesh and geometry for you. So it's just going to be sort of like an iterative process, just getting all this in here. All right. Just take your time, like so. Alright, so just going to then duplicate this in the subtool and then go through deformation and mirror, like that. Pretty easy. So the next thing we'll do is we'll get ourselves a little bit of a jacket. So let's append yet again another subtool, and this time we'll go with a cone. And I'll just go ahead and bring this cone in. I'm going to hit the E key to bring up my gizmo, which is our translation rotation scale manipulator of our mesh. And I'll hold shift down in this white circle and rotate this across. And now I'm just going to bring this in. This is going to be sort of like our little mesh that we use to help us out and give us our look. Now from here, I'm going to gives us an opportunity to play around with the deformer. If you hit W key and let's say go with taper, I'm just going to maybe work with the taper here, like so, and maybe something like that. And then I'll just click on the cog again and hit accept. Scale this down to be a little bit fatter. And that gives us a good starting point to work with the move brush again, BMV. And we want this whole thing to sort of engulf around it. Now, one thing I would like you to do is turn on local symmetry. Hit the X key so we can go into symmetry mode and just sort of bring this about, like so. I'm holding left alt left option to sort of push and pull on the y-axis. And once you have what you need, I'm going to do something else now. And that something else is I'm going to make some cuts, because right now we're getting to a point where once I have what I want, I'm going to go through and work with a knife cut brush, which is something that's going to be a very important brush. And I'm just going to kind of give myself a little bit of a breather room. Now, it may not look like a jacket just yet, but that's okay. Now, to access a knife cut brush, I'm going to hit Shift Control, go up to my select rectangle, look for my my knife curve brush, and if we go through and try to make a cut right now, it should make everything, it should cut through, but you can always double check with transparency. That's kind of why I like to do it that way. So right now, let's just go ahead and make this like so, maybe that. Again, this is why I've come to like the knife cut brush so much. It's just got a whole bunch of fun things on it. And that's about what I need. Alright, so we got ourselves a few basic pieces. Now we're just going to talk to you about that remeshing features, those two remeshing features, which are Dynamesh and ZBrush. Now Dynamesh is an earlier remeshing feature that helps us to combine, which is good for basic blockouts where geometry has a tendency to get stretched out. And this is also good for remeshing and making one uniform mesh, so how we combine this sleeve with this body. So let's go ahead and show you what we mean here. To combine all these pieces, let's go for turning off the mannequin, turning off ghost and transparency. And now let's just merge all these meshes down like so. And that's going to be merge down, which merges the subtool below it down. Now, you can see that they're all still separate meshes, which if you wanted you could resplit again with split to parts, but we want to make this one singular mesh. So that's where Dynamesh is going to help us out. Like I said, it's good for a basic block out. So let's turn on Dynamesh like so and see what we get, and you can kind of already see we have a little bit of a mesh here. Now it's a little bit blocky, so if you give it a few meshes, it kind of, you can get this a little bit more smoothed out. But for me, I'm going to say, let's go ahead and make this for now just one mesh. Let's Dynamesh it, and then I'm just going to smooth it out just to kind of make this a little bit more cleaner. And again, we're just kind of giving ourselves a nice clean mesh. Now you can do another way, which is just simply pulling things out with a snake hook brush and then reapplying Dynamesh, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for now, we're just going to do it like this. We may do something similar like that with a future blockout mesh. So now that we have a little bit, you kind of see now how we have this all taken care of. Let's see if we can sort of get this closer to looking like a jacket. So let's get back into our character. Let's go ahead and go into our mesh, turn him on again, and hit the move brush. Now this is sort of like a suit jacket. It's our coat a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and bring this guy down like so. Feel free to access the transparency to kind of know your limitations on where everything is. You can kind of see this is all just sort of a iterative process. We're just slowly going through an iteration of everything. Now if you stretch this geometry too badly, you can always Dynamesh it back out again. But again, this is just simply, we're iterating off of everything. Now it may not look anything like a coat, but that's how it always starts off. You are going through and slowly making this into a coat. So once we have a little bit further of what we want, let's get back into that knife cut brush and make some cuts here. So let's make a cut here. Notice I still have symmetry on. And let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and bring this down. And let's see if we can make a cut like that, maybe. Alright. You can see we have a nice clean poly mesh right here. Now that we have this cut, let's go into solo mode so we can work with this guy just by ourselves. Okay. So let's go into solo mode and let's just see what we can do here. Now one thing that we need to work on is we need to kind of cut into the center here. And knife cut brush is in fact strong enough where it can do that. You know, if we bring this in, double click, double like that, you can kind of bring a nice clean mesh. It's a little bit chopped up, but that's okay because we're going to fix that. Now to give you a little bit of a context, to do this we're going to hold down Shift Control, and while doing that hold down left click to draw out a curve, release Shift Control, and then double tap left option to get a nice strong sharp angle turn, and then double tap option again, and then we can get something like that. And you can kind of see polygroups have been cut. Now just like before, when you're holding Shift Control you can change it out from curve, and you can see knife cut brush kind of shows up, but the stroke right now is curve. We can also do this. And for those that know their spacebar trick, we can cut a hole in here like this. Now you may be wondering at this moment, if you're completely new, how I am panning the character across. Alright, so what I did here is I held Shift Control, left click dragged out a mesh, release Shift Control, and I was still holding on to my left click, and now I'm holding spacebar button to create sort of a new look about it, or to pan it, I mean. So I kind of start from the top here because trying to get everything to line up going all the way up is a little bit difficult, so kind of bear that in mind. So let's bring back solo and see how that broke it in. That seems to be okay. So now what I'm going to do is, you see all these different color pieces of geometry? Well, that is our polygroups. So what's going on there is when knife cut brush cuts through something, it creates a clean uniform piece of topology with a lot of tries, which is something we don't like. So we're going to go ahead and rebuild this by first deleting all this and just keep the orange piece that you see here. So to do that, we're going to once again go into Isolate Select. Isolate Select goes ahead and selects just that polygroup because this is a polygroup, and that's what Isolate Select does. It Isolate Selects polygroups. Now it's not like they disappeared. If you Shift Control left click, they'd reappear. But right now they're hidden. The first thing we need to do is delete that hidden geometry. And to do that, we're going to go through Geometry, Modify Topology, and Delete Hidden. And now everything is gone. But if you look, we still have some issues. We still have these tries. If I try to divide this, you can kind of see this ugly jaggediness. So let's go ahead and talk to you about the second ZRemesher feature, slightly newer, which is ZRemesher. Now ZRemesher can kind of give us some clean topology, and that's what I'm hoping to go for right here, is a clean amount of topology. If we go through ZRemesher and just simply hit ZRemesh, you can kind of see what I mean. You can kind of look at it and see how we have already this very nice, crisp, clean topology. And if you hit it one more time, you could probably get something even cleaner. Notice I have X on. That helps us keep some symmetry like so. And if we're looking to reconstruct the jacket, we can go through Dynamic Subdivision up here, hit Dynamic on, change that thickness out, and we can now manipulate some thickness. But I'm not going to necessarily go with that just yet. I'd like to go ahead and rearrange everything to sort of be just a little bit like gravity's taking place here, you know, like so. And if you want to create something symmetrical, you can go ahead and do that. That might be easier to see. And that might be easier to look through, you can kind of see how it comes together. Now, one thing I want to end this off with is that there are a lot of different ways to establish a base mesh. For me, this is one of the more cleaner ways, but right now, you have to understand that Dynamesh can be used in more than one way. Somebody could take a sphere and go ahead and retessellate the geometry into this same shape, but you can kind of see how it we will always arrive at the same conclusion. If you want to get rid of that back face calling, let's go ahead and go through display properties and hit double. So when you get to this point where you're kind of satisfied with where everything is, don't hesitate to go through geometry, or sorry, don't hesitate to go through geometry and kind of go through and do a Z-remesher. But when you're also fine with all of it, at that point, go through dynamic subdivisions. Click on that dynamic subdivisions. Understand one thing, that nothing here is sculptable geometry when you turn on dynamic subdivisions. So you are going to have to convert it all to geometry, which is first done by turning this on, going through and making sure that, let's see, you have a couple of things. One, smooth divide turned to 0 so that there's no change in topology. And then the thickness applied to where you find acceptable. For me, this is actually a very acceptable thickness, so I'm just going to hit apply. Now, if you want to be a real stickler, there's places like crease polygroups, which can take a polygroup, like there's a polygroup here and a polygroup here, and you want to crease to keep this corner, you can just go ahead through polygroups. And just go through group by normals, and you'll see 2 polygroups are placed there. And then that allows you to go through geometry, crease polygroups. You can kind of see a crease shows up right there, and that way when you divide this with Control D, you can keep that crease if you want. Now, the other thing that I will go through and say is that this may find itself to be slightly complicated, trying to figure out what a polygroup is, trying to figure out isolate select, how Z-remesher works, how all of this works, but it allows you to problem solve a lot of areas. Like if you're not ready for this and you already hit apply subdivisions on the dynamic subdivision, you can still just reset back to Shift Control left click, isolate select this, go through modify topology and hit delete hidden once again and reset if you need to. So don't feel like you're in a bad place or anything like that. You can kind of reset the whole thing. The other thing I will say is don't get tunnel visioned. BMT, that's move topology. Maybe if you turn off X key, feel free to create a little bit of a topology, an asymmetrical piece. This is sort of the mayor's jacket, so, you know, right now it's looking like an open shirt. That's okay. We're going to make our adjustments and make our changes to that. Ha. I knew that was going to happen. Let's go ahead and bring that back in. There we go. Make sure though well, we can also make our adjustments like so. Don't make it too wavy though. One thing that was a bit of a stickler for my own sense for this base mesh, because one thing I forget to mention is that this fabric is in fact going to be thick. So if it's thick, then our mayor character is going to have less waves in how he looks. This is also why I like geometry to be low res, so that we don't create so many ripples with the move brush, as you can see. Alright, so with that said, that's going to be our very start off base mesh. And from here, what we're going to do is use this principle to tackle our other base mesh clothing. So it's going to go slightly quicker in all of this. So get ready to have some fun. And remember, don't get too tunnel visioned in what you're doing as far as one way of doing it. If you wish to, for example, make a sphere where I'm going to say append sphere, like so, and you want to go ahead and bring this in and simply do something similar to how we start off, where we kind of move this around like so, and then kind of bring the pants in like so. We can do something like that as well. So feel free to we just did it this way mainly because of the fact that there's a little bit more cavity work with this base mesh. So we may just go ahead and do it this way on the next lesson to give you a little bit more of a heads up that not to ever feel constrained about what style you need to approach this by. So with that said, stick around and stay tuned.